Unfortunately, I have another scam that I need you to be aware of because in this case, a family lost their entire life savings in a matter of just a few seconds. And because of the actions that the family took, the bank denied their fraud claim. And so the family is out this money forever. They're not going to get the money back. I don't want to see that happen to you. And I don't want to see you make the mistake this family made that allowed the bank to say, we're not going to credit your account back this money. So in this case, the family had just left on vacation and they had gotten a call. The custodian for their money was Charles Schwab. They had gotten a call from what appeared to be Charles Schwab. They were on vacation. They're like, we don't want to talk to Charles Schwab on vacation. So they just let it roll to voicemail. Then a call came through a second time. They did the same thing. The third time, they're like, okay, maybe we better pick up. Maybe something's going on. And the person on the other line claimed to be from Charles Schwab and said that there was a fraud alert on their account and it looked like somebody was trying to wire money out. And if they didn't respond right away, then that wire would go out and they could lose it forever. It was for $1,000. So the family's, okay, what do we need to do to protect our account? Again, the caller ID showed up as Charles Schwab. They thought it was from Charles Schwab. The person sounded legit. And so ultimately, they asked some verification information and then had a verification code sent to their phone. Well, unfortunately, the verification code was from the bad guys trying to log into their account so that they could scam them. So when the couple got the verification code, on the code, it gave the 6-digit code and whatever the numbers were. And then they said, this code, this is your security code for online login. And then the message goes on to say, do not share this code with anyone, even if they claim to be from Schwab. So, that should be our warning. Of course, we're feeling this sense of urgency. We're feeling that this is an emergency, that we have to respond quickly. But that warning from Schwab or from any bank, when they send you the code, oftentimes they're going to warn you, hey, don't share this code with anyone. Super important that we pay attention to it because, as I mentioned earlier, Charles Schwab denied the fraud case since they technically, unknowingly, shared the authorization code with the scammers. And in this case, the family lost their life savings. Now, they were a young couple, so it wasn't hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it was, whatever they had saved up to that point. And it can happen with any bank. In this case, it happens to be a couple that had their money at Charles Schwab, but it can happen at any bank. And unfortunately, as we get older, the amount of money that we have in our bank account likely is going up. And we may not be as mentally acute as we were 20 or 30 years ago. So we become more of a prey. We become a bigger payoff and maybe easier prey for these scammers. So what do we do? Well, first, this sense of urgency is always part of a scam, that you have to do something right away. You have to do something urgently. And so the first thing is to fight that inclination. The second thing is, just because somebody calls you doesn't mean you have to pick up the phone, right? In this couple's case, they said, we're on vacation. We don't want to talk to Charles Schwab. And what we need to do to protect ourselves, if there is this sense of urgency, is to slow down. An extra hour is likely not going to make a meaningful difference. Slow down and call a number that you know to be true. Don't call a number back that the person on the phone gives you. Call a number back that you need to be true, that you know to be true. Maybe it's on the back of your credit card, it's on the back of your ATM card, it's on a bank statement from your bank. Call that number and say, hey, I just received a call. Was this from you? And you know what? 9 times out of 10, as we know, it's probably not going to be from the bank. But call a number that you know to be true. The other thing that I want to encourage all of us, we all get scam calls, unfortunately. We all get scam emails. And just like when a door-to-door salesman comes knocking door to door, just because somebody's knocking at your door. I used to tell my daughters this when they were younger, right? As they were 8 or 10 years old, sometimes we'd leave them at home for an hour, 2 hours by themselves, but we'd tell them, you know, just because somebody's knocking at the door doesn't mean you have to answer. And in fact, when mom and dad aren't there, fortunately this was a long time ago for my kids, but you should not answer the door. And you know what? If somebody's not in your contacts, let it go to voicemail. Don't pick up the phone just because they're calling. If it's important, they'll leave a voicemail. And if it is a voicemail and they claim to be from your bank, don't call them back at the number they give you. Call them back at a number that you know to be true, because you think about how long and hard we work, and it is criminal, and it should be treated as a crime, but unfortunately a lot of these crimes take place and they're overseas. So in the case I just gave you, the money that this couple was scammed out of was sent to another bank. And of course that money was cleared out right away. So when Schwab tried to reverse that wire, they couldn't, because there were no funds available. And many times these scams are done in developing countries, countries which don't have agreements with the U.S. to prosecute crimes that take place in the United States. And unfortunately, many of the scammers themselves, the people that are calling, in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, they're victims of human trafficking as well. And so they're in a bad situation. So it's a lose, lose, lose. And it's just such an awful feeling when you get scammed. Oftentimes people do not report these crimes. And if you do a Google search on FBI report crime, they have a crime reporting division. Hopefully you don't get scammed, but if you do get scammed, let the FBI know, because they need to know about these things to protect other people. And partly the scammers rely on us feeling embarrassed and us feeling ashamed. I saw recently where an ex-director of the CIA, now he's now in his late 70s, early 80s, but he was the ex-director of the CIA and ex-director of the FBI, also fell victim to a scam. And he went public with it because he wanted the public to know, he and his family wanted the public to know, even somebody like himself that was at the highest level of security, was at the highest level of knowing about crimes like this, even somebody like he can fall victim to a crime like this. So job number one is, I don't want you to beat up on yourself if you do fall victim of it. Hopefully if you fall victim to it, it doesn't cost you much money. But unfortunately, these investment crimes, crimes in the financial institution, in the financial realm, according to the FBI, are some of the biggest losses per case of all the scams out there. So we have to be super careful. It's super nice to have the mobile banking and access, easier access to our bank accounts, and we don't have to go into the bank anymore to do deposits, to do withdrawals. But with that also comes a burden that we have to keep our accounts safer, and we have to be super cautious about any information that we share with anybody. And likewise, if you find a video like this helpful, and I'm really bringing this from a vantage point of, as we get older, we become more likely to be targets. And another video that might be of interest to you, if you enjoyed this one, talks about why boomers are not as prepared for retirement as we should be. And that's this video here, Boomers Are in Trouble. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.